It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
Take 5 from Take Command. Craig Hoffman here, Logan Paulsen there. Full preview of Commanders and Broncos tomorrow, Logan. But Denver's an interesting trip. Obviously you got the altitude. It's a great stadium. A lot of history there. What do you remember from going to Denver in your career?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough trip because it's a long flight and there's a time change and then there's the elevation. And I think everyone gets kind of sleep on the elevation. Oh, it's not that big of a deal, but you get there and it's not so much the elevation. It's like you've been at elevation before, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's how dry it is.
Yeah.
When you're at elevation. It's you're at elevation, the air is a little thinner, whatever, but it's also really dry. So your mouth gets dry like immediately and you feel extra fatigued because it's like harder to breathe because you're like, oh my gosh, all of these indicators that show me that I'm dehydrated or that I'm tired or whatever it is are at a premium. And so that physical element is really interesting because I also think it's interesting how the team handles that. I remember they'd give us like special vasodilators and stuff, like beet juice is a vasodilator.
Right.
They'd include they'd recommend what's that? Like some pre-workouts are good vasodilators. So you take a little bit of that before the game or whatever to help kind of get oxygen to your body. But it is like, I was kind of like, oh, it's not going to be a big deal, but it is a big deal. Like I remember in warmups kind of going through my process and just being so gassed, like I'm saying, like so out of breath. So it is a tough trip. And then the stadium, like that stadium is got a great fan base to it, and like they are out and they're loud and they're raucous, and it's a tough spot to play. It's very hard offensively because it's so loud. Obviously the fatigue element's huge. So like this is one of those games where like home field advantage, like there's a couple teams in my career where I was like home field advantage is not really like a thing. Like sometimes when you went to Arizona, not really a thing. But when you go to Denver, it's a thing. When you go to Seattle, it's a thing. When you go to New Orleans, it's a thing, right? And I think like this will be a really interesting test for this team because it's gonna be bumping. They've got a new coach, and I think that they're hungry for something more positive in Denver right now. They've invested a lot of money in that team, like in terms of offensive line, trying to make Russell Wilson go. So like they're a very talented football team. It's a very tough spot to play because of the physical things we just said. And also the fans there are good fan. It's a good fan base for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what we hope FedEx can become here in this new era and what we saw in week 1. John Allen talked about how much the fans mattered. And by the way, in your career, you also had to go out there and then Von Miller was lined up outside of you. So that probably was not very fun.
Yeah, Von Miller, man, he's really good at football. I don't know if you knew that, Craig.
I've heard a rumor.
Yeah, you've heard. So like I remember the first time. So like there's this thing with like pass rushers, elite pass rushers, that they tend not to be very physical in the run game. They tend to be kind of apathetic towards the run game because like as a pass rusher, the way you get paid is getting sacks. So they're kind of, I don't want to say they're saving energy, but that's kind of what it feels like, right? They're kind of, like they're pacing themselves a little bit. So there was this play where we call it like it was, what is it, 19 Zorro. So basically like versus a 3-4 structure with an outside linebacker who is Von Miller in this case. I would get help from the fullback, like on inside help. So I could be really aggressive on my reach, really violent to the reach. And so it's me and DY, is a physical son of a gun. And so we take Von Miller and we put him, like, no joke, in the water cooler. Like we put him way out there on the sideline. And we were like, this guy ain't nothing. Like we're going to, we were so fired up. And so it ended up being like a 25 or 30 yard gain. So we were all fired up. And then Kyle's like, all right, let's come back to it. So like 2 plays later, we're running again and we're running to the right. And I was like, oh, man, we are about to tee this dude up real quick. Just tune him up nice and good. And so I go out to get him, and I'm firing off the ball. My hat's low. I'm flat back. And I swear to God, like he was about as close as my hand was to my face, and he just disappeared into like mist. And he like swung me, and I fell right on my face. And I just was like, oh, my gosh. And like I went back and watched the film, and it was crazy how quickly he was able to like do his little basketball weave and then like just disappear from my vision and get inside and make the tackle. And I was like, oh, so now he's upset. So then the next play, I'm like all tentative and nervous. And I felt like Vaughn did. I watched this on film, so I knew he did this. But he does a really good job of like kind of like playing it like a boxer a little bit. You know what I mean? Like kind of rope-a-doping you a little bit. So like he lets you get one, right? Where I got after him. He makes you look like an idiot. And then the next time I was super tentative on him, and he literally did like a double stick, like he was going to make me miss, and then just grabbed my neck and then threw me over the pile. I was like, man, this is going to be tough. I got to like think of a plan here in the next 15 minutes so I don't look like an idiot for the rest of the game. But, when you're playing elite football players like him, like there's a reason they're elite. So if you get one on them, it's probably because they want. They probably because they're letting you get one.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. It's a trap.
Oh, that's funny. All right. We'll get to more stories throughout the season as different opponents come up. Hopefully all of them don't end up with Logan on his face, because that doesn't seem very fair to Logan. But, Von Miller.
Those are the funny stories, So.
Yeah. You had a
but
good,
I got him
career,
once.
man.
I got him once.
You got him, and you got him once. And that's all that matters.
I'll take that.
All right. For Logan, I'm Craig. We'll see you tomorrow for a full preview of the Broncos game here on Take Command. Thanks for watching this clip of Take Command. First, why don't you like it? It lets other people know that it was good, and then they should watch it too. And Logan, we have a new exclusive home for full episodes.
We do. 1067 The Fans YouTube page. Go check it out and please subscribe.
Yeah, do what Logan said.
Do it.
Very, very smart.